Welcome to Doctor's House Call. This is your chance to get in gear with Dr. Gear, a duly trained naturopathic medicine doctor and doctor of chiropractic, board certified in family medicine and minor surgery. Brought to you by Payson Health and Wellness Center at 801 East Highway 260 every Tuesday afternoon from 5 to 6, live on KMOG. You can call in now and speak to the doctor at 474-2427 with any questions, or after the show, call Dr. Gear during regular office hours, 474-7409.
Alrighty, well, we did things in reverse because we could.
Why not?
Why not? Well, welcome to Doctor's House Call. This is Chuck in the morning filling in for Mike Farrell. And in case you didn't get the hint, well, we just, we're just running ragged here and just on the fly. But at any rate, we got the Doctor's House Call show for you, and I'd like to welcome you, Dr. Gear. It's been good to see you again. It's nice to meet you again, once again, and Dr. Wyrick again, and let's see, and we've got a third party here. We've got a whole house full here.
Yes, that's Dr. Ergi Gumasinelli.
Okay.
He's been on the show in the past, and he's back here again with us today, and to be a really great host and talk a little bit about emotional problems and damage to the brain.
You bet. Not my own emotional problems. Good to see my old friends, Dr. Gear and Dr. Wyrick.
Yeah, and let's leave my emotional problems out of it too, because that could be a 4-hour show, for goodness sakes. But
we love having Dr. Gumasinelli back on the show with us.
Outstanding.
He's a board-certified psychiatrist and practices here in Payson and on the internet.
Well, welcome. Nice to meet you. All right, so let's get right into the show. And, of course, we're live streaming on KMOGcountry.com. And anywhere in the world you happen to be, you can tune in and listen. So
you can also call in.
Yeah. So
what's the number they should call in?
474-2427 if you have a question or a comment for the good doctor.
With 928.
That's right. 928 for those that are listening in Budapest.
There may be somebody in Saudi Arabia listening.
There you go.
All right. So the subject today is brain health, emotional intelligence. That's the key to a longer life. Before we get into the meat of the show, I want to bring to your attention some national politics regarding your ability to choose the type of health care you want for your life.
Well, yes, the position of the chiropractic profession in the healthcare industry can be best illustrated by the picture of the drug industry eagle coming down with talons extended towards the chiropractic mouse. The chiropractic mouse fights back with the only weapon it has, which is scientific research that is extremely poorly funded compared to the trillions of dollars spent by the drug industry. If only all physicians were fully trained in the value of scientific structural medicine, side by side with scientific biochemical medicine and scientific brain function medicine, the world would be so much a better place. It has been said for thousands of years that money is the root of all evil. Well, I take exception to that. In my opinion, the love of money above the loss or above the love of fellow humans is the root of all evil.
So the U.S. House of Representatives this week reintroduced bipartisan legislation to modernize Medicare coverage of chiropractic services. The Chiropractic Coverage Modernization Act, H.R. 2654, would create an increase in Medicare coverage of services provided by chiropractic doctors within the full extent of their state licensure. The change would align Medicare with chiropractic coverage offered in many private health and Medicare Advantage plans. So you can learn more at www.hr2654.org. That's hr2654.org. Dr. Wyrick has put a link on his website, drwyrick.com, for this.
That's drweyrich.com.
So we'll talk about more about this later in the show. So, Dr. Weyrich, would you be so kind as to begin our scientific discussion in plain language? You notice I said
yes.
Plain language.
Plain, okay, as in flat. Let's give your immune system the rest it needs to stay cool, calm, and collected. I want you to try something for me. I'm going to rattle off a bunch of symptoms, and I want you to try to guess the health problem I'm describing. Persistent headaches that won't disappear, no matter how many painkillers you pop. Dizziness, clumsiness, or trouble with your balance. Memory and concentration problems that make your daily life a slog. Violent mood swings that appear out of nowhere. All right? Got any guesses? Well, if the first thing that came to your mind was, that sounds an awful lot like a concussion, you are right on the money.
But what you may not know is that a stressed-out immune system can cause similar problems when inflammation leaks into your brain. You see, inflammatory stress activates microglia, the brain's immune cells. Microglia are also activated after a concussion or other traumatic brain injury. Dr. Weyrich, what happens when inflammation disturbs the brain's balance?
Well, healthy neurons can become stressed and start producing distress signals that attract the microglia. Your microglia are unable to distinguish between a pathogen and a distressed neuron, and they may eat your neurons alive. As the neurons are killed, neural connections are eliminated, which may cause problems with how your brain functions.
So what can you do to reduce inflammatory stress, Dr. Weyrich, and support a healthy immune system?
Well, besides the obvious good habits like sleeping well and eating well, you need to give your immune system a special kind of therapy to reset it after years of toxic assault. Once you have a calm, cool, and collected immune system again, you'll find yourself brimming with all-day energy. Your brain fog will lift, and your thinking will become clear as a sunny bluebird day. Stress levels will plummet, and you'll be more peaceful and worry-free than you have been in a long time.
Well, Dr. Weyrich, how does all this come about?
Well, flavonoids are compounds produced naturally in many fruits and vegetables. Flavonoids have been proven to support a healthy, balanced immune system response. For example, curcumin is a medicinal spice that can be formulated to cross the brain's blood-brain barrier and calm inflammation in the brain. IgG food testing can identify foods that are really causing inflammation in your body. Unimpeded blood flow into and out of the brain can be improved by getting the bones in your spine straightened out so the blood flow tubes can function normally.
So if you're ready to calm your brain's inflammation and experience crystal clear clarity of thought once again, come to Payson Health and Wellness Center for your free consultation. Now, Dr. Ergy, you have a kind of a personal story here. Would you like to tell everybody who's listening about your personal story?
Well, sure. That's why I'm here. And this is dear to my heart. Dr. Gear and you too, Dr. Weyrich, helped me out quite a bit. Actually helped out my family. Yeah, the wonderful thing about you is you're a family practitioner as well as a doctor in chiropractic medicine and natural medicine. My oldest son had a fall off the playground set. It was a pretty nasty fall. He fell on sand. He fell on his feet first and then his knees, and he kind of held himself up with his hands, then eventually hit his face on the sand. And he scratched up his face pretty good and, you know, as you could say, maybe rung his bell a little bit. I did a examination of him right when he fell, because because that's kind of what you do when you're a doctor. That's the first thing. So he was able to walk okay. He hadn't lost feeling in his fingers or toes. But what I did notice was that he was just not quite the same boy. A little moodier, a little bit more aggressive towards his younger brother. He wasn't sleeping as well. Now, these were kind of like, maybe I would call them soft symptoms. They weren't very, like, huge symptoms like staying up all night or vomiting or, having high blood pressures or, anything like that. These were just more subtle symptoms that you recognize as a parent.
That's the kind that a lot of people slough off and say, "Turn nothing."
Oh, sure. Well, after several days, his skin started to heal, the bruises started to get better, but he was just not the same, on a emotional level or a behavioral level, because he was just like, how kids are and how I am too, how adults are when they're a little bit hungry. They get a little bit, more irritable. They call it hangry. That's a hunger and anger together. So he was like hangry all the time, and that's not like him. That was very different. So I called you up and I said, "Dr. Gear, you need to check out my son, as you have since he was born." And so you found some things that he was struggling with that I did not see, okay, that were not found on a traditional medical exam.
Oh, you got to have trained fingers
Sure.
to find those things.
Yeah.
And I'm able to find them, and I can show them to you, and you find them immediately once I show them to you.
That's right.
But you're not trained in it, so I'm training you a little bit as he grows up.
Right. So he came to you, and you evaluated him. You immediately recognized some of the issues that were going on in his spine, and you helped him. You treated him very well. And it was actually a series of treatments. But I noticed after the very first treatment, I had my son back. He was great. He was happier. He was immediately, he felt better.
We saw his cheeks turn red immediately. There was better blood flow.
Well, yeah, say about that. So you did a chiropractic manipulation.
Right.
And then immediately one side of his face, his cheeks, got like, it was like it was blushing.
Rosy red.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then he felt better. And, he never, because he's only 3, so I didn't mention that. He's only 3. He's a little kid.
Yeah, he can't articulate.
So he could never say I had a headache. But, he said my head doesn't hurt anymore, is what he said after the treatment. Yeah. And before the treatment, it's not like he said my head hurts. All I knew were just like that he just wasn't doing that well, that he was moodier. And, I just kind of want to add another thing as a parent. So you want your kid to be comfortable, and you want them to be happy. So what did we do? He wasn't sleeping very well, so we co-slept and stayed up with him at night and just soothed him the best way that we could. But that's out of the ordinary. He normally sleeps really well. And then during the day, he was like a little bit moodier. And what we never do is we never turn the television on in the house. We turned the television on. I'm guilty of that. Just so he could, kind of cool off a little bit and watch something fun. And that lasted for a little bit. His eating habits, he still ate, but he didn't eat hearty meals, and he normally would clean off his plate and eat vegetables and things like that. He wouldn't eat any of that stuff. So as a responsible parent, what did I do? I gave him food that he would eat, which were usually like sweets and stuff that you shouldn't be giving. And so it's like this vicious cycle that was starting to occur. And at that point I said, we're going down a path that is going to be hard to come back from. And that's one of the reasons why I called you up.
That's absolutely correct. In fact, what I noticed when he walked in, he was kind of walking in a daze. He wasn't his normal self. Pretty bouncy boy usually. You got him really great shape. But this time he was kind of lethargic and and kind of not right. And he had an apple in his hand,
Oh, yeah.
but he
Yeah.
wasn't paying any attention to the apple.
I was trying to get him to eat. That's
Right.
why he had it. Yeah.
So after I gave him his adjustment and stood him up, within, a minute or less, he was biting into the apple. And within 5 minutes, he had that apple almost completely consumed.
That's
and
right,
That
yeah.
was without anybody talking to him about the apple at all. He just did it on his
True.
own.
And you pointed that out to me.
Right.
And that was just like, that's pretty cool.
Wish I'd have known
true.
that. Wish
Yeah.
I'd have known that years ago, because I drove race cars for 14, 15 years, and I know I probably had several concussions, and a lot of the symptoms you're describing, when I'm thinking about it, I definitely was having that. I would, in a daze, kind of not quite myself, and headaches. Of course, I expected the headaches, from, hitting the wall a few times and rolling over cars at 160 miles an hour. That will definitely give you a headache. But yeah, that's interesting.
And one of the things that Dr. Gear said was, hey, why didn't you bring him in right away? And we didn't. We said, well, we did an evaluation, made sure that he was, medically stable, quote unquote medically stable,
Right.
that, he wasn't needing to go to the hospital and things like that. Okay. And then we just, I guess in our wisdom, said he might get better in a few days. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was going into a weekend too, and so you have those kind of things. You have those kind of conversations you have in your mind, like, does he really need to go to the emergency room or not? And you're kind of having the negotiations in your mind and with your spouse, and
Right.
you're watching him. Well, I guess he's getting better. Okay. Well, Dr. Gear said, why didn't you just bring him in right away? And I said, well, I guess we didn't.
Yeah.
But it would have made a big difference.
Yeah, well, we didn't have concussion protocols back then, in racing. And I remember there was one time I was prepping for a race, and we did the morning warm-ups, and I crashed the car pretty significantly. I mean, I destroyed the car, and they, got me off the track, got me out of the car, and pulled a backup car out of the truck and plopped me in the seat and said, well, you're starting at the back of the pack, so go get him, Tiger.
And don't wreck this one.
Yeah, please don't wreck this one. But went on to race the next day. I have no memory of the race. Don't remember any of the details.
A lot of people think that the concussion is just in the brain itself, but the concussion's in the spinal cord and the brain. It's all one organ. The blood flow coming in between the holes in the vertebrae, whether it's the term is the intervertebral foramen, or the hole between the vertebrae. It's got a nerve, an artery, 2 veins, and half a dozen lymphatic vessels going through that hole. And when you jam things up, there's a swelling that takes place, and the first thing that happens is the lymph vessels start to be narrowed down by the swelling, the soft tissue swelling. And that means the drainage of the nerve is cut off by half. That means it can't get its food in like it should get its food in. And so the nerve starts to lose its ability to function. And the function that we're talking about is the speed of transmission of a nerve impulse from the brain all the way out to the last little synapse of that nerve to make a muscle work. That's what nerves do. They make muscles work. And it makes muscles work in the blood vessels of the various organs of the body. So if it's your neck that gets injured, it's your thyroid gland, your parathyroid glands, your salivary glands, your sinuses, your eyes, your ears. All those things are affected by the injury to your neck. That's why Everin was walking around kind of stupefied, if we can use that old term.
Right.
It's...
I think you mentioned it was, one part of the spinal cord involved in sympathetic function was affected for him.
Yes.
And so he would have these bursts of kind of feeling really energetic just for brief periods of time, and then just like really sleepy, but then not really even sleeping that well, He would sleep, but not really sleep that well.
The
He'd
chemistry
wake up.
was all out of balance.
Sure.
The adrenal glands, the thyroid gland. Dr. Wyrick could explain all that in great detail, and eventually he might do that for us. So we gave him 3 treatments. Gave him the first one in the morning, another one that afternoon, the one next morning, and he was in pretty good shape, wasn't he?
Well, he actually had 4 treatments, because so we just got a trampoline. Okay.
Well, no, that was the next one we were going to talk about.
Oh, you have that on our list here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he jumped on the trampoline.
That's right here.
And then I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but my wife told me later.
Go back.
Okay.
Look toward
This
the
is
bottom.
so organized. This is really nice.
A couple of days later, he was brought back in the office because he had fallen on his trampoline, landing face first and jamming his neck. His symptoms all returned rapidly.
They did come back, yeah.
And you, Dr. Gumasanelli, immediately called and asked me if I would attend him again, which I readily agreed to do, except I was in Snowflake at the time.
That's right.
And I had just finished getting my treatment from Dr. Bowman in Snowflake, and I was headed back. And, in fact, you called me when I was on the table with Dr. Bowman. I said, I'll have to call you back later.
Right.
So I called you. And
glad you picked up.
Well, yeah, of course. It was, I always do that. So I told you, yeah, I'd be happy to take care of him as soon as I got back in town. So I went direct to the office, and you met me there. And I did a couple of minutes evaluation and treatment, and he was back to his old self. And what did you say?
I can't remember what I said, but I will tell you.
I'm selling the stupid trampoline.
But I will tell you what my wife said. I don't remember what I said, but I will tell you what Tessie said. And she said, "What are we going to do without Dr. Gear?"
Well, I quote it here.
Okay.
I remember very clearly. You said, "I have my son back."
Mm-hmm. That's right, and that's true. That's true, yeah.
Because you recognized all of his mental abilities had come back. And that was his 4th treatment for 2 injuries. Yep. Trampolines are dangerous. I ruined my body with a trampoline when I was a freshman in high school by jumping off of it, landing on a wrestling mat head first.
Oh gosh,
that's probably
you
probably shouldn't do that.
No.
Well, you were probably. I mean, you're an athletic guy, so you were probably trying to do flips and stuff like that.
I was pure stupid.
All things considered, the trampoline is not my idea. I dragged my feet in terms of putting it together, and I refused to put it together. Actually, my wife bought it. So she called her friends over to put it together. So I'm sitting on the couch, and she has her friends there, and one of them's a real neat guy here. He's a physician in town. He's real strong. And I said, I can't just sit here and watch this big, strong guy put this trampoline together. I have to go and help.
You have to turn in your man card.
But I definitely did everything I could not to put it. But, that's, when happy wife, happy life. And, and you have to take some risks, I guess.
I'm going to make a suggestion, and that is you have him hold your fingers of both hands, and you have him bounce while he's holding your fingers. And then you practice him on things. This is the way you start out a little child on the trampoline until they get their balance. And you don't have them do any flips, for goodness sakes, no flips, until they're really good at bouncing both feet, one foot, the other foot, bouncing backwards, bouncing forward. They get control. And then they have to learn gymnastics on the ground before they start doing it on the trampoline.
I think that's good advice, good trampoline advice. It's kind of like, and Chuck, you would probably like this as a race car driver, but I used to ride motorcycles when I was younger. And the one thing that I know about riding motorcycles is right when you are gaining some confidence and competence, that's when it's most dangerous. That's when you can crash it. Because at first you're going slow enough and you're cautious enough, and then you say, wow, I can make this turn. I can go faster. I can do some things. And I had 2 accidents, actually. And it's just right when I was starting to get confidence both times.
I've treated probably several hundred motorcycle riders who tried to gun it as they were going around a corner. Mm-hmm. And that back end just flipped right out from under them, and they went ass end over apple cart. And, man, I had a lot of fun putting them back together again.
Yeah.
Broken ribs, screwed up spines.
Yeah, I rode motorcycles for 40 years. In fact, I just sold my Harley just a year ago.
Ah.
So. But, I rode motocross when I was younger and then started driving race cars and rode Harleys since the 70s. And fortunately, I never went down on my Harley. I had a few close calls, but, I was pretty good on that thing. But,
That's good. That's real good. So let's, Dr. Gurgi, while you're here, and I want you to stay the whole show if you have time, do it. Other symptoms of concussion. There's a long list of things resulting from either the neurons being squished by the impact. You like that, squished?
Sure, yeah.
By the impact of their lack of
good
food
medical
in and
word.
out, waste out. That's what we talked about with the lymph drainage. Because the flow of blood has been slowed by spine bone jamming and or twisting into what we call subluxation. Big word. It means a little tiny bit of a dislocation. That's what the word subluxation means. And a lack of proper blood flow because of it. So the symptoms, heavens and Betsy's, there's a whole list of them here that I've written down. And bedwetting is a symptom. Stupefaction. You know, who's that, Abner? Little Abner. Remember that comic strip?
right.
Whenever, what was that gal's name that would walk past and all the men would be stupefied?
I don't remember.
Yeah, don't look at me.
I still have symptoms of concussion. I don't remember.
So then we have attention deficit disorders. That's your not remembering.
Right.
Hyperactivity disorder. That was you trying to get out there on that road again and not remembering what you were doing. Anxiety, moody, quick to anger, easily frustrated with ordinary tasks. That's
Right.
what you were telling me about Everin.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. I mean, it was like he would have these, toys for kids. They're like little power tools, but like for, a 5-year-old or younger. And he wasn't able to work with them the way he normally did. And he would get so frustrated.
His brain neurons were not synapsing. Big words.
Wow.
You know what that meant?
No idea.
It meant the electric wire running from the telephone in the farmhouse to the central switchboard had a glitch in it. And it wasn't making contact in a switch mechanism. And so you were hearing it. It was like all garbled. And that's what he was trying to use, was garbled nerve impulses to do, and inside the brain to do the things he wanted to do, because he wasn't getting good blood flow. That make it easier for you to understand?
Exactly. Yeah,
All right.
definitely.
Makes it easier for me to understand, too. That's good.
So headaches, lack of interest in activities, sleepy, sudden drop in grades. If he was in grade school, you'd have seen that happen. Lightheadedness, nausea, fainting, slurred speech, sudden weakness in the limbs. That's what you looked for right away when he first time he fell.
Right. Real, like, significant,
Right.
serious symptoms. They're all serious symptoms, but, if you're tingly or if you're suddenly weak in the limbs, I think you got to get urgent medical
Right.
attention.
And sometimes that's urgent chiropractic medical attention
That's right.
first, because if it's a twisted bone, they don't see that very often in the urgent care or in the emergency department of the hospital unless they're trained in it. And you've got to get an osteopath who paid attention during structural medicine training to find one that emergency medicine doctor that knows how to feel the spine. Difficulty in swallowing, loss of balance or feeling unbalanced, partial or complete loss of vision or double vision. When I was a student doing my first rotation, it was at the Chicago Eye Hospital, and I was at the elbow of an ophthalmological surgeon. Boy, try and pronounce that. An eye doctor surgeon. And he got in an automobile accident, got a whiplash, and he started seeing double. He says to me, "How come I'm seeing double? Because my eyes weren't hurt." I thought to myself, you're a surgeon of eyes, and you don't know the nervous control of the muscles that focus the eyes?
Well, remember, he wasn't getting blood flow to the brain either. It probably wasn't his best day.
Well, he was pretty sharp at everything else, but I had to explain it to him, and I used a book written by an MD, because back in those days, there was a couple dozen MDs who liked to do structural medicine, like an old-time osteopath and like a chiropractor. And so those people one of them wrote a book, and she was one that trained me in what kind of x-rays needed to be taken to understand the spine and how it was not functioning correctly. Her name is Ruth Jackson, and she was the first woman orthopedic surgeon in the United States. She became one in the mid-1930s, and she trained me in 1962. So I explained that to him, and then I gave him the book that she had written on the cervical syndrome. The bugger never gave it back to me. I had to buy another one.
You got his phone number? I'll call him.
Yeah. By the way, that ophthalmological surgeon did not have the two distal digits extensions on all four fingers of his right hand.
Wow.
And he did his surgery holding the scalpel between the first section and his thumb.
Kind of like chopsticks.
Yeah. And he was great.
Wow, that's
he was great at that.
amazing.
Yeah. So, now, the partial or complete loss of vision or double vision, dizziness or a spinning sensation, numbness or a tingling feeling, confusion. Oh my God, that's what we all have, isn't it? Confusion. Vomiting or nausea. Now, there's a couple of them in there that signify this is an emergency. But most of these signify I don't have good blood flow because I'm all screwed up in my spine. My neck vertebrae are twisted in subluxation. And so the spine should always be evaluated to see if it's a cause of poor circulation to the brain, which aggravates the traumatic impact recovery. If the spine is found to have sustained joint subluxation, the sooner that it is relieved, that quicker the brain and spinal cord will recover. Thousands of people I've examined and treated over my career of 57 plus years have injuries of childhood that had they been properly treated, that person would not have developed all the spine changes which resulted in poor circulation changes to the spinal cord and brain and all the chronic disease sequelae in their lives.
Amen.
Did you get all that, Chuck?
I'm going to school on you. My goodness, back in the day, I mean, that was, I was racing in the 80s, and all they said to me, well, if you have a concussion, you'll be dizzy and you'll vomit and all of that, and if you're not doing that, you're good to go, brother.
Just live with it, right?
Right.
So, Dr. Weyrich, emotional intelligence is the key to longer life.
Yeah. When we think about what we need to do to live a long, healthy life, many of us probably think about the foods we're eating, the supplements we're taking, and how much we exercise. Yeah, all of those are important. But a group of researchers who have analyzed long-term studies of how people age have come up with another key factor you need to incorporate into your life that often trumps the important things I just mentioned.
Well, Dr. Weyrich and Dr. Gumacinelli, what is the key factor, Dr. Weyrich?
Well, what the study shows is they point to what's called emotional intelligence. What's that? It's the ability to accurately identify and deal with your own feelings while empathizing and understanding the feelings of others. To put it more in down-to-earth terms, it's being in touch with your own feelings and sensitive to those of others. Add to the mix this, emphasizing positive emotions over negative ones and embracing gratitude for the good things in your life, being optimistic and hopeful.
So, Dr. Weyrich, is there proof that these can add years to your life?
Oh, yes. As described in Harvard Magazine in 2019, researcher George Valiant headed up a study called the Grant Study that has been examining the longevity and health of a group of Harvard grads since the 1920s. According to his findings, if you want to live to a ripe old age, you should worry less about cholesterol and more about gratitude and forgiveness. So I already have put up a link to that study on my webpage for this show. To get to the webpage, go to drweyrich.com, drweyrich.com, open the site menu, and choose Multimedia Archive. Scroll down to today's show date and click the link, and voila! You will see a list of scientific references pertinent to today's show.
So, Dr. Weyrich, do you put much stock in cholesterol as a measure to your health?
Well, personally, I don't put that much stock in cholesterol because there's many other factors that are much more predictive than cholesterol. I put a lot of stock in forgiveness and always looking at the bright side of any issue.
So is there any relation to emotional intelligence and the aging heart?
Oh, yes. Ergie.
I'll let you. Yeah, you bet. Hey, check it out, Dr. Weyrich. I'll let you kind of get into the nitty gritty about this, but I want to just say, if you're struggling with emotional problems, that's going to be causing stress, and that's going to be causing inflammation. And we know that the mind and the heart are just intricately linked together. So, and so many people that kind of have like an aching heart, that's a real thing. That can come from stress. It can come from grief and bereavement and all sorts of things. So, I could just kind of give you the common sense approach and also the clinical approach that if you're struggling emotionally, it's very common to actually feel that pain in your heart. Dr. Weyrich, you probably know a little bit more about the deep down and mechanics of it and maybe some studies as well. And I'd like to let you say what you need to.
Okay, yes. Let me follow up a little bit on what Dr. Guminacinelli just said. Recent research has even shown that there are neurons in the heart that talk up to the brain. So there's a two-way communication between the heart and the brain. The brain is not calling all the shots. The brain is listening to comments from both the heart and the gut. So when people have a gut feeling, that's the neurons in their gut communicating to their brain. So that's a topic for another show, I'm sure. But among the Harvard grads in the Grant study, Dr. Valiant points out that not smoking, having a stable marriage, exercising, keeping your weight down, and not overdoing alcohol, along with emotional intelligence, all contribute to better aging.
I got 1 out of 5.
But he adds, what's critical is allowing yourself to love others and being able to take people in, as in, I've got you under my skin. Now, he's not the only one who thinks so. Other researchers have found that emotional intelligence contributes to factors that help you live longer, and scientists are able to measure these. For instance, work at the University of Arizona shows that emotional intelligence can help lead to better heart health as you age.
So is there published research on this topic of emotional intelligence, Dr. Weyrich?
Yes, they also published an article, which I have put a link to on my website, drweyrich.com. These investigators define emotional intelligence as an awareness and grasp of your own emotions and the emotions of others around you, which is pretty much the way I defined it at the previous article. They add that it entails being able to use that emotional awareness to improve both your life and the lives of your friends and relatives. When it comes to your heart, they found that this kind of emotional awareness is linked to better function of what they call cardiac vagal control. This refers to the fact that the vagus nerve, which starts at the base of the brain and runs down through the body, regulates the working of the heart muscle more efficiently in folks who have higher emotional intelligence. The result is better control of your blood pressure, healthier variations in your pulse rate, and fewer harmful cardiac reactions to stress. They conclude that the being more insightful into your own emotions and the feelings of those around you usually goes hand in hand with the heart that's more resilient and better able to recover from nerve-wracking situations.
Is there a way to improve emotional intelligence, Dr. Wire?
Well, yes. We've talked a little bit previously about heart rate variability biofeedback, and that's one way. But more generally, if you feel like you were just not born with the right mindset to be perceptive about your emotions, there's some research that suggests you can improve this part of your life. For example, a recent study in Australia found that older adults who had high blood levels of vitamin B12 and folate enjoy a better and more hopeful mental outlook. They had more positive emotions and they responded more positively to life's challenges. Again, I have a link to this article on my website in the multimedia archive for today's show. A more common, and in my opinion, more likely way is to use meditation to improve your emotional intelligence, such as our computerized heart rate variability biofeedback treatment, which is a program that we have at Payson Health and Wellness Center, or a study.
By the way, people can come in and get a free consult.
Yes,
and they can determine whether or not they want to improve their brain function on that heart-brain monitor thing that you've got.
Yes, I will be happy to demonstrate it, and just give us a call, schedule a 15-minute consult with Dr. Wyrick, and tell them you want the heart rate variability thingy, and we'll get you set up.
That little thingy was developed in university type.
Oh yes, it's got hundreds of published research backing it up.
So it's not just some fly-by-night thing.
No, it's been around a long time, and I learned about it as part of my naturopathic medical education when we were studying mind-body medicine.
So it's PhD worthy.
Yes, it is.
All right.
So getting back to the study, UCLA did a study that was coordinated with other academic institutions, and they found that another form of meditation called Transcendental Meditation, which was really popular back in the 1980s, can boost perceptiveness about emotions while decreasing stress. In this research, after being tutored on how to meditate, the people in the study meditated for 20 minutes twice a day at home for 4 months. At the end of that time, the investigators found that their emotional intelligence, measured with a test called the Emotional Quotient Inventory, had improved significantly. Again, the peer-reviewed research report is linked to on my website, drwyrick.com. We have found the speed of improvement and the level of improvement is much greater with the computer-aided biofeedback treatment program that we offer.
You know, Dr. Wyrick, I did all that transcendental meditation type stuff 60 years ago, and I know how effective it is. But it takes a long, long time if you don't have the computer to give you the feedback immediately.
Yes, the computer shows what the physiological state of your body is, and with practice you can learn to control your own physiologic state. And where your physiologic state goes, there your mental state goes also.
Well, I also used a type of a training program where I could make the mouse target on the screen of the computer move wherever I wanted it to move. It's a brain type training program that I had years ago, and I was able to do that 99% accurate right from the get-go because of all the transcendental meditation that I had done previously and the training of my brain.
Yes, and that is called neurofeedback, and by the way, I am board certified in neurofeedback.
So it's something, if somebody out there really wants to work at getting their brain functional and get out of the hole, out of the doldrums, and they've done everything they can do and they're still not where they want to be, they need to come in and get that done, don't they? At least get a free consult with you.
Yes, and I have equipment that there's scientific research published on football players who sustain many micro-concussions over their years in playing football, and there's biofeedback equipment that helps people deal with the after effects of a concussion and actually decrease their symptom burden. And
so, Dr.
that's
Wetter,
researched.
What's the take-home message summary on this emotional intelligence thing that you can tell everybody who's listening?
Well, improved emotional intelligence through meditation, according to the research, translates to improved aging. And I'm board certified in anti-aging, so imagine the coincidence here. Besides that, using your emotional intelligence to help others feel better about themselves can make a difference. As Dr. Valiant puts it, don't try to think less of yourself, but try to think of yourself less.
And that's a sentiment I think most of us, young and old, would agree with.
Okay, so before we talk about some of the cases that we've treated in our office, let's circle back to the Chiropractic Coverage Modernization Act, H.R. House Resolution 2654, which, if passed, will give Medicare patients far better access to chiropractic care.
It'll give them access to the chiropractic care that each state says a chiropractic doctor can perform, not that which was artificially limited by the American Medical Association back in 1963, I think it was, or 2, somewhere back in there when Medicare first started. And the American Medical Association, the allopathic medical doctors' political arm, went into the Congress of the United States and said, chiropractic, it is total quackery. You don't want to cover it at all. Well, 1.5 million people at that time wrote in. Some of them, I've seen some of the letters that were photocopied and mailed out to us all to educate us what went on. There were women who were washing floors, stairways, who wrote on torn out sheets of stenographer paper in pencil and broken English how much they hurt and how much chiropractic helped them. 1.5 million people wrote in that their voices be known, and the Congress said, okay, chiropractors can adjust the spine, but only if it's shown on an x-ray that there's a problem in the spine, and only the x-rays have to be taken by an MD. They can't be taken by a chiropractor. So, you see, it was very much narrowed down. I come from a time when we fought tooth and toenail to get any coverage whatsoever for chiropractic services. And naturopathic medical services are still really difficult to get on insurance. So we have a situation right now where the Congress in the United States has been asked to, and has had this inserted, H.R. 2654. So I sent an email to Congressman Gosar via his assistant Penny Pugh, who's his district director of intergovernmental affairs, and you can also contact her by email, phone, or snail mail to support this legislation. Her contact information is on drweirick.com in the multimedia archive for this radio show. My email was short and to the point. Quote, please ask the congressman to sign on to H.R. 2654, period. He signed onto the bill last year, period. Also, please ask him to strongly suggest to the congressman he influences to sign onto the bill, period. He's a great influence in bringing awareness to his fellow congressmen, end quote. Her reply was, hi, Dr. Gear. Thanks for flagging, and Congressman Gosar will be added as a co-sponsor. Hope all is well.
Well, that's fantastic. We will continue along with this thread later in the show. In the meantime, let's get back to some of the cases that we have seen recently in our office. This last week, we saw patients present at Payson Health and Wellness Center with both chronic and acute pain, and high blood pressure, chronic stomach indigestion pains, leaky urine, constipation, poor blood circulation in legs, shaky hands, shaky writing, and more. So we also had patients come in with their imaging to get a second opinion from Dr. Gear regarding spine pain. They had been told expensive injections and or invasive surgery would be necessary. But a thorough review of their imaging revealed no reason for either type of care. Twisted bones in the spine are not corrected if they're in their malposition by either type of proposed treatment. Proper manipulation and adjustment of the spine bones is the proven treatment for those problems.
There was a couple from California who referred to us for evaluation, and the first test of each showed more than 20 foods to which they made IgG antibodies. Their S3 test for vitamin A precursors was also below the midline. These two tests indicate that digestion of proteins and fats is compromised in both of them. Muscle testing revealed the best of 4 digestive products was Wobenzyme.
And we also had other patients this past week from 3 years old, that would be Dr. Guminacinelli's son, all the way up to 84 years old. A 15-year-old boy was in for his weekly evaluation and treatment. He had been hurting in between his shoulder blades from age 8 until 14, when his grandmother and mother decided he needed to see Dr. Gear. Now, 1 year later, Dr. Gear was able to pronounce that he has completely recovered. He will not have any problems due to the prior injury that he suffered with for 6 of his 14 years of life. Not only is he free from pain, but also his digestion is now normal, and he does not have the constant pain interfering with his enjoyment of life and schooling.
In schooling, we don't want to minimize that. He's doing much better in school, and he's able now to strengthen his body correctly. Instead of eating sugary foods, he's eating good quality foods. So the dynamic spinal thrust by a chiropractor that is well trained in the physics of precisely directing a controlled force has shown to be very effective in stimulating the brain and spinal cord into more normal function. Dr. Guminacinelli, that's exactly what you brought your son to me for. That's why you come to me too, because you get your own treatments, don't you?
Absolutely.
In fact, made your golf game better too, didn't it?
I haven't played golf in a while, Dr. Gear. But what you're saying is absolutely true. Doing a good shoulder turn and a back turn and being able to play more golf, that's always a fun thing.
Well, I think the reason you haven't played golf is because you got 2 little boys you got to take care of.
That's true.
And you got a third one coming on.
That's true.
Yeah. But you are going to go into a tournament here in another week and a half.
That's right.
That's the Veterans...
Veterans Helping Veterans Tournament.
Right. Shaggy's putting it on with the Veterans Helping Veterans.
Saturday. Is it May 8th, I think?
May 8th, yes.
May 8th,
May
okay.
8th at Payson Golf Club. Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
great.
Yep.
Great.
And we're going to be represented by Billy Broadman, who's been on the show a number of times. And she's going to be at the hole that you recommended, Dr. Guminacinelli.
Very good.
At hole 15.
Perfect.
So she's
I'll
gonna
see
be-
you there. I'll be playing, so...
Yeah, we're going to be offering
supporting
people...
our veterans here in Payson.
We're going to be offering people the ability to come in and get a free myovision evaluation of what we call these range of motion and surface electromyography, so that we'll be able to see what's really happening to their spines and why their golf game could be improved if they get their spines fixed. Because then, well, you know yourself, don't you, Dr. Guminacinelli, how much different your golf game was when you started to get your spine fixed?
Oh, absolutely.
How many strokes did you cut off?
Oh, let's not comment on that.
But the game became very enjoyable to you because you didn't hurt anymore.
That's right.
And you could put the ball where you wanted
right.
it to go without twisting your body all around.
Well, let's talk golf for a second. I mean, there are many ways to make it more enjoyable and to become a better golfer. And the instant fix is, why don't you buy these new clubs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And then, which, may actually help. Okay, because there is an improvement in the technology and also a sense of confidence too. But that goes away eventually, very quickly. And then, being physically healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy, and also not being in any pain, and ultimately having good technique and getting good lessons is the key to having a better golf game. Dr. Wyrick.
Yes, I just want to also point out that the heart rate variability biofeedback training has been documented to improve a golfer's game as well. It helps you get more into the zone as you prepare to take a shot. So that's something, again, that we offer also at Payson Health and Wellness Center.
The Journal of Alternative Therapeutic Health Medicine reported in 2011, Dr. Wyrick, that a PET scan machine, which uses powerful neuroimaging technique, was used to investigate a neuronal activity in the human brain by measuring outcomes following a cervical chiropractic adjustment.
Yes, all the measurements acquired by this test revealed a reduction of stress hormones. This study proved a direct link between a subluxation and an increase in sustained sympathetic nervous system tone, fight or flight, as a result of a bone being shifted.
That's just what we saw with Everett, Dr. Gergie's son.
Yes. So sustained increase in sympathetic tone over time increases stress hormones such as noradrenaline. The noradrenaline increase sets the stage for chronic disease, physiology, or disease. The purpose of a chiropractic adjustment is not to treat or cure a condition, but to remove the factors that interfere with healing so that we can gain balance in the nervous system.
The Journal of Neuroplasticity published an article in 2016 related to chiropractic adjustments of the brain entitled Manipulation of Dysfunctional Spinal Joints Affecting Sensory Motor Integration in the Prefrontal Cortex. That's a brain source localization study. A link to this article is now on drwyricks.com also. Dr. Ergie, this is in your area, the prefrontal cortex, integrating sensory motor integration.
Well, that's nice. Yeah, that's incredibly interesting.
So in this study, the chiropractic adjustments carried out in the study were high velocity, low amplitude thrusts to the spine or pelvic joints. That's what I do. Smash, boom, crash.
Well,
But
we need to take...
So it's only 200 milliseconds of a thrust, and it breaks up the rust in the joint.
Yes, sometime when we have more time, we need to unpack high velocity, low amplitude and explain all about what's going on there, because it is a term of art within the chiropractic practice.
Right. So I want to let all of you know that we are very pleased with you listening to our radio show, and you can get to it on KMOG.com under shows, podcast, Doctor's House Call, and you can get to it on Dr. Wyrick's website. That's www.drweyrich.com. You click to open the site menu, Multimedia Archive, Dr. Wyrick's Multimedia Archive, and choose the KMOG Show by Data Broadcast.
So the references are already up for today's show, and probably sometime tomorrow we'll put the link to the YouTube blog.
I'm sorry that all of you listeners out there were so enthralled with our show today that some of you were supposed to call in and didn't quite make it. But you can never worry about breaking in on us. We don't mind that a bit. So I want you all to come back next week. You all hear? Our topic will be on how to stay younger, longer in brain, body, and relationships.
Outstanding. All right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Gear. Give out that number if they need to give you a call and make an appointment to come see you.
That is 928-474-7409. Is
All
that right, Dr. Wyrick? I do believe that's right.
You don't call yourselves. All right.
Here, you can find us in the new relocation guide.
Yeah. Pick up a copy of that. That is fantastic.
Page
by the way.
86 and 87. You see that?
There you go. Yeah.
Right there.
Hey, and you got the phone number right, too.
I did, didn't I?
Perfect. All right. Well, we'll be back next week with another edition of Doctor's House Call. Thank you so much for tuning in.
You've been listening to Doctor's House Call, aired every Tuesday afternoon from 5 till 6 p.m. To call Dr. Gear after the show during his business hours at Payson Health and Wellness Center, 801 East Highway 260, call 474-7409 or go to his website, drbobgear.com. That number again, 474-7409.